Have you ever heard of a commission of inquiry that gets postponed before it has even started? Well, that's exactly where we are with the Madlanga Commission. Postponement announced. At the same time, DGs and DDGs are getting suspended. Shadrack Sibiya and Masemola lock horns, and Dr. Naledi Pandor drops a fiery memorial lecture calling out corruption, complacency, and the state of South Africa. Stick around to inquire into all of this and more with no postponement. Fam, I just want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Pace Car Rental. Use promo code SMWX and make sure you show Pace some love as they're showing this channel some love. Now, let's get into the episode. Spread the fire. Welcome back to the Mpofu-Walsh experience. I'm Mpofu-Walsh, and on this channel we explore South African politics through interviews and analysis. We've done it again, my fellow citizens. We've done it again. In the postponement Olympics that are the South African government, we have reached new heights. We have clocked up new records because a commission that has not started has been postponed. In a media statement by the Madlanga Commission, this is what we heard. The commission stated that the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development was in the process of procuring the commission's infrastructure requirements that were necessary for the commission to commence its hearings. All quite vague. In the media statement, the commission announced that its hearings would commence on the 1st of September. It made this announcement based on unequivocal commitments made to it by the department, effectively that everything would be ready. And the statement continues, unfortunately, those commitments have not been met. Further important paragraph, but for the lack of the requirements that the department has failed to procure, the commission would otherwise have been ready to commence the hearings on 1st September. You can't get more of someone throwing someone else under the bus in legalese than but for the failure, we would have been good to go. That's like when a judge is saying, I'm side-eyeing you, basically. So thrown under the bus in legalese, pretty much. So we have a commission that was due to start that won't be starting. Bear in mind, it's 44 days since the president announced that there would be this commission. And he said in that address that it would report within 3 months, give us an interim report. Well, I regret to inform you that we are entering September. Bear in mind, this was in July, and the commission hasn't even started, never mind an interim report. We can kiss an interim report in 3 months. Goodbye, everyone. So, worrying times, and of course, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development wanted to have their say, so a press conference was called to hear their side of the story, and let's see what Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Madlanga Kubayi, said. Have a look at this clip.
On Friday, it was brought to my attention that the Madlanga Commission will not be able to start as envisaged for the 1st of September for their hearings. I immediately convened several meetings throughout the day of Friday, cancelled my diary, and together with some of the officials and brought them in to be able to try and see if there are issues that we needed to resolve and how we can ensure that the 1st of September is not compromised. It was evident towards the end of the day that we will not be able to practically do that because intervention would have meant that we violate PFMA and SEM processes that are in place.
So Minister Kubayi is effectively invoking procedural logjams, but it's not clear to me exactly what these regulations or laws were preventing. So one would have assumed that in the announcement of this commission, as soon as the president announced it or even before, all of the procedural requirements for commencing this commission would have been known in advance. As we know as a country, this is definitely not the first commission. This is not our first rodeo with commissions. So the first question that comes to my mind is, why was it not anticipated that this kind of procurement would need to happen in the first place? And we didn't exactly get a clear answer. Now, there's the PFMA and there are Treasury regulations which govern this kind of thing. And effectively, usually when you're procuring for an amount over 500,000 Rand, then various requirements kick in, such as the need for different bidders. I think there's like a 21-day window. So it seems as to me, because we need to start trying to put the pieces together, that there was some kind of lapse. And I'll explain a bit more why I believe there was a lapse, because you're going to see that people got suspended. And following that lapse, there isn't enough time before the 1st of September to do the procurement that's required because of what the law states about public procurement. Let's take a step further, because the minister then announced that she was going to be suspending not one but two senior officials. Have a look at this.
On Friday, as I did the report, I had immediately put the DDG responsible for ICT, Mr. Jabu Tlachwayo, on immediate suspension, pending a full investigation and a disciplinary process. This is because of the failures and lapses on the system, and also not being able to do due diligence and ensuring that the commission starts on time. With the report submitted, the president then communicated the request for them, or in the process, the president then delegated to the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development powers to institute disciplinary proceedings against the Director General of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, Advocate Doc Mashabane, and this decision has been communicated to him this afternoon.
Wow. So a whole DG and a whole DDG have either been suspended or had it communicated to them that they will be suspended. Again, some questions arise here. So the minister says she reported this to the president and gave him a full report about lapses and failures and a failure of due diligence. What lapses? What failures? What lack of due diligence? Was a provider for these cybersecurity, apparently these cybersecurity items are holding up the procurement, was a provider found and due diligence was performed and they were found to be inappropriate? Or was there a lapse in that the timelines weren't calculated correctly? We don't have clarity or transparency on what actually went wrong. And that's what I would have looked for with both the commission and the ministry communicating to us what this holdup is all about. We still really actually don't know. All we know is there's been a holdup, there's been some lapse, there's been some failure, and people are being suspended for it. But what was the failure? And that's key, because I saw some interesting questions being asked. For example, one by News 24 journalist Karen Morn, where she asked, okay, the DG is alleged to have been involved in holding up state capture documents. And now it appears that he may be involved, or he may be alleged to have been involved in holding up this process somehow. Is there some connection between them? So should we impute bad faith here? Or is this just a bureaucratic bungle? We just don't know at this point, and it would be good to get some transparency, especially because this commission is all about getting transparency. Yay! Soon we're going to need a commission of inquiry into the delay of this commission of inquiry. Sad times in the Republic. Okay, so we also have this interesting situation of DGs and DDGs being placed on suspension. That's a serious step in a department. The DG really steers the ship of a department in government. Ministers oversee policy, provide political direction, but to suspend a DG is serious. So it also suggests that there is some kind of serious wrongdoing here. And all of this itself needs to come to light, let alone the stuff that the commission needs to uncover. We've seen some interesting reactions. EFF calling this more of a deliberate attempt to try and postpone. I saw Mbuyiseni Ndlozi saying they, presumably the ANC, want this first to go to the parliamentary committee where dubious people can first ask questions and then it goes to the commission. Interestingly, the ANC held a press conference and didn't say anything about this in the press conference, in the opening remarks. DA, at the time of recording, which is the evening of the day that this was announced, you'll probably be watching this in the morning, evening of the 26th. DA, nothing. So, is it GNU-itis? I don't know what's going on with the DA over there. Now, meanwhile, as a commission was yet again postponed, imagine just one more thing. Just imagine a commission that hasn't even started is already postponed. Can you imagine how many postponements there are going to be when it actually starts? The postponements to the reports, it's going to be Zondo. At least Zondo Commission started, I think, when it was supposed to start. We didn't have a postponement before it started. I don't recall. Not good. It's not looking good for, because if you think about it, the president said in, I think it was the 13th of July, that in 3 weeks we'd have an interim report, which would make it the 13th of October. So we're definitely not getting 13th of October. If we were to get the further report 6 months after his announcement, it would be what, November, December, Jan. So 13th of Jan. So those are the timelines with which we're working, and already we're hearing that it's definitely not going to be met. I had a really interesting interview with former DDG in the presidency, Professor Busani Ngaweni. Check that out. But he said something fascinating. He said that, interestingly, the timeline for this commission to report coincides with the President's State of the Nation address next year. So at that SONA, President Ramaphosa will be under pressure to tell the nation, we're done with the commission, this is what it said, because that's what he promised. But again, if we get to SONA and things haven't worked, it's going to be awkward for the president, because he's going to have to come before the nation and say, I know I promised you this thing 6 months ago, but it turns out that delays, what did they call them again? Lapses have meant that we can't deliver this report to the nation. So, meanwhile, of course, the backdrop of all of this is General Mkhwanazi's explosive allegations in early July. He made allegations against Shadrack Sibiya, a senior figure within the police, and following those, Sibiya was suspended. Sibiya today went to court in an urgent bid to halt his suspension, but requested a postponement because he wants a full bench of judges to hear his urgent application. So that was postponed. Take a look at what Shadrack Sibiya had to say.
At this point in time, I'm quite sure that this is what was going to be ventilated here today, so that you could hear what is being discussed, the facts put on the table. Where I'm standing, I'm quite sure and quite confident that I've done nothing wrong, and it is for the judge at the ultimate end to finally say whether I'm guilty or not. But I can safely tell you that I'm actually waiting for a positive outcome. I do know that I am not involved in any wrongdoing, and we will be clear.
At the same time, National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola had this to say about the case.
I asked him to stay home while at the same time I'm doing internal investigation. The internal investigation will determine as to what next course of action will be taken. I can't preempt. Probably the investigation can say, no, there's nothing, come back, and then we will continue working. Or if there's some other things, there will be other processes that will follow.
So that battle continues, and we'll be sure to keep an eye on it. Bear in mind as well that Parliament's ad hoc committee will need to provide a final draft agenda for this committee and its hearings, so we should hear when that should be kicking off soon. And we're going to get the new date of the Madlanga Commission hopefully soon as well. So we're going to have to wait as a country for those testimonies to kick off, and I wonder if it'll be Parliament or the Madlanga Commission doing it first. Now, another thing that caught my eye over the weekend was Dr. Naledi Pandor, former ANC NEC member and member of cabinet in multiple ministries, and a former guest on SMWX, who made a fiery and important speech in memory and honor of struggle heroine Gertrude Shope. The speech was a memorial lecture paying homage to Shope's legacy. Now, Pandor really structured the speech around 10 things that Gertrude Shope would like to see if she were with us today. And there were a few of them which I thought particularly stood out because we heard a real indictment on the state of South Africa and a critique of the ANC from within. That is very welcome, if you ask me. So one of the things she said that we need to look for in South African society today, as she addressed this Women's League event, was the need for selfless and accountable ANC leadership. She really went in and said, the people are looking at the ANC with disdain and horror, which is one way to put it, and said that effectively it needs to be deeply cleansed. But she had a very interesting way of putting it. Let's have a look at what she said.
We have lost our glory. Let's not pretend about it. We have lost it. The people are looking at us with disdain. The people are looking at us with horror and shame. So we have work to do to restore the glory. It's like, that pot at home when you burnt the cabbage. If you use the sponge scourer, that cabbage blackness won't go away. But if you use the hard one, the copper wire, you'll get rid of it. We need that renewal.
Yo, the copper wire. When you bring out the copper wire, that is a damning indictment. It's not every day you feel like an ANC leader is capturing the mood of the country anymore. But I feel like Dr. Naledi Pandor really did that with this speech. The people are looking at us with disdain, with horror, and with shame. We have lost our former glory. Those are some damning words. Maybe tough love, because Pandor was quick to suggest that this was about ANC renewal. I think many of us have long given up on the hope of ANC renewal. But nonetheless, Pandor does stand out as an ANC leader who still commands credibility. It would be cool if Naledi Pandor was president, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. Like, that would be pretty cool. Imagine, crazy idea. Imagine South Africa was like, okay, let's have a real government of national unity, not this fake one that we have now. Uncle Cyril, thank you very much. Motion of no confidence. Have a good time. All parties come together, literally all, across the political spectrum. Yes, I mean MK to DA. And say we're having a government of national unity. We're going to appoint a president that has credibility across the political spectrum, someone like Naledi Pandor, to step in the interim, elect her to parliament, elect her as president, and have a cabinet of parties of all different political parties, put petty squabbles aside until 2029 and restore the country, or at least prevent the decline further. That would be a true government of national unity. And quite frankly, I think we're getting to the point where we need a reset even from this so-called GNU that we have. So we must never pretend like there aren't political alternatives to the current malaise. It's just a lack of political imagination and a refusal to execute a better future for South Africa. So I'm throwing it out there. What if we had a real government of national unity, not this one that needs to be dealt with via the copper wire? That's all. That's all for today. I hope you don't need to be dealt with any copper wires where you are. watching, and you will get the copper wire if you do not like, share, and subscribe to this video. Take us to 300,000 subscribers and keep it locked on SMWX. Shout out to Khumo, Khumalo, and Otsile Nkadimeng for their help and research on this episode. Aye. But for the lack of the requirements that the department has failed to procure, the commission would otherwise have been ready. This is throwing the department under the bus. Bro, if you need to leave and cough, please feel free, man. Jeez. People are dying out here, man.